Lawmakers in at least 10 states are already introducing or passing bills to ban the devices.
And I believe clearly that is the right decision.
Spanish teacher Essence Wright says it wasn't enough to ask students to keep their phones off or in their backpacks. What is going on with the phones in the classroom before this ban went into effect?
Constant notifications. Constant notifications.
What does that do to learning?
It interrupts the whole process. It really does.
If now you have to address it, or you need to have an administrative moment in your classroom that could have all been avoided if it didn't even exist.
And now it doesn't. Students don't have their phones from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. when school is dismissed. Hear that? It's the sound of students at lunch talking to each other and playing games.
When we were allowed to have our phones, like at lunch, it used to be like really silent and like nobody would talk. So.
Seniors Jayla, DeAndre, and Rayvon, along with freshman Moses, say they understand the reasons for the cell phone ban. Raise your hand if your parents would say you are addicted to your phones.
That's all she say.
Yeah.
Do you think your mental health is stronger because of this cell phone ban?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they always liked it.
Like I'm always used to it, having it in my pocket, you know, so for it to be taken away, it's like losing a limb.
So you weren't happy in the beginning. Now it's been almost a full school year. Has your perspective changed, and how?
At first, I didn't see like the reason for them taking our phones. But at the time it's passed, I've seen like the benefits from it, or how much of an effect it's had in classrooms and behaviors.
New data out of Norway reinforces what educators call common sense after examining middle schools with phones.
She's wild for this shit. Hey, you know what's funny about that? You know, people are doing studies on this shit, and teachers are like, duh. Yeah, it helps, duh. You needed a study to tell you that if they don't have their phone, they focus more?
You guys had to do all these studies to ban the phones? But you're so stupid. 1 + 1 is 2, you idiot.
Researchers found that students saw higher GPAs, fewer mental health consultations, and more than a 40% decrease in bullying incidents. Before the bell rings, students at Dunbar High School in Dayton, Ohio, placed their phones into these envelopes labeled with their names and grades.
The mornings are just like TSA. Bags, purses, food.
Most Dunbar students have gotten used to the new norm, but some still try to sneak in their cell in a hidden pocket, a bag of chips, a book with a phone-shaped cutout. But this one takes
pause. What in the Shawshank Redemption is that shit? That was crazy. Nah, that's actually nuts. I didn't know what this video is going to be. They're smuggling shit in. Like they're fucking drug dealers trying to get across the border. That's maddening.
But of course, we did too. We were with our T19 when we were texting in high school. I mean, I think that's normal behavior to try to rebel and do that. But that's kind of.
But they were cutting books open and putting that shit inside. And then and the school was so on top of it. They're like, bitch, we know what this is. And they opened that shit up. That's wild. Just that the school said, we're operating like TSA. Yeah. Okay. We got to get parents involved. There should never be a time where the ban is this intense that they got to operate like TSA.
Of course, but they're going to try shit.
This,
you enforce it or you don't.
That speaks to a parenting failure to me.
You don't want to be a teacher and then someone raise their hand and like, what's wrong? Can I go to the washroom? Why? Well, I need to go to the washroom because I put my phone in my butt. Like, you don't want to
Motorola Razr.
You don't want to hear shit like that. What'd you do? Put my phone in my butt.
Takeout container. Yep, that's a phone under the chicken. Language arts teacher and football coach James Lackey is part of the morning check-in.
Pause. I'm not gonna lie.
Let's split the game of is that black people?
Yeah. If I'm TSA, I'm like, nigga, lift that chicken. Yo.
It smells good. Why is your chicken vibrating?
I'm gonna be honest with you. If I put a piece of chicken on my phone, I'm not eating that chicken. Is that a hot take?
Hey, I'm licking my phone. We're different people.
You lick your phone?
Yeah, there's chicken grease on it. Fuck you mean?
In this economy.
There's, you know what I mean?
This one is lost. That's appropriate.
Do you have to laugh to yourself sometimes?
Oh, we have a good time. We have a good time. It's fun to me now.
The district leading the... Have I phone? I joined the students at John Handley High School in Winchester, Virginia, who now have to place their phones in pouches or keep them off and in their backpacks during the day, including between classes and at lunch. Raise your hand if you think this is a good idea to ban phones in schools. And what are some of the distractions you've noticed in your own classes?
I'd say biggest distraction would probably be Instagram Reels, probably TikTok. They'll probably just keep it up on their computer and watch it as their work is just sitting there.
Why do you need a cell phone with you in school?
I find it's part of how this generation has learned to communicate, and in this generation it has become a thing that our cell phones help us connect.
What about connecting by just passing notes or talking to each other in person?
That's not as cool. Yeah.
Have any of you had a negative experience with your phones due to bullying or what you've seen on social media? Raise your hands.
You're seeing these people, these models, and they create like a sort of ideology of what you have to become.
I'll see things like sports-wise for me, really. Someone will show like physiques, where they are for their sports, and it just makes my goals seem harder to reach for me.
But even these kids, you saw none of them raise their hands when they think it should be in place.
Yeah, but they all had dead eyes. Did you see that too? What? There was no engagement. They
It's like
weren't
asking
present.
a crackhead, yo, what do you think about the ban of crack on buses? I want my crack.
Some parents worry about not being able to reach their kids in an emergency. David Lawrence is the Dayton Public Schools superintendent. When parents who push back and say there's an emergency, I need to reach my child during the day, what do you say?
I say that there have been emergencies throughout the history of school. We've always done a good job of being able to prepare for emergencies and then contact parents in a way that's meaningful and pretty swift based on the emergency.
It looks pretty low tech what you're doing.
It is an envelope. You can buy them at a convenience store. And so you put them in an envelope, store them, and then give them back. It's really easy.
What would be your advice to other school leaders who are watching this and wondering if they should implement this in their school?
I would say that it's cost effective, quick, simple, and easy.
7 hours of phone-free time might be the best thing that's happened to education in a long time.
They are actually being children. That's exactly what we want them to be. These are the last years of their childhood, and we want them to live them.
You guys see the contrast?
What emergency are we talking about? If there's an emergency, which one?
It's always the same emergency.
Which one?
It's actually
For the
not just
Americans.
that, because actually some parents overseas, I wanted to hear more from people. They were saying that, sometimes the school, let's say the kid is sick, they think that the kid should just stay in the school and like not go home so they don't contact the parent. But the parent's like, no, I wanted to be aware of this so they could run to school. To me, the solution to the problem of safety in school or emergencies isn't to give every child a cell phone. It's to make schools more safe. Safety might be an issue, but the solution to that would be like, let's standardize certain safety protocols or whatever. If the kid is sick and you don't want it to be up to the school's discretion whether or not you're contacted, make it mandatory in this kind of scenario. I think that's a better solution than cell phones.
I don't even understand what the emergency is.
Your kid is sick. The school doesn't take the sickness seriously. Your kid's just laying on a bed. That's the emergency a parent might give as an example.
I understand that's not an emergency. That's neglect from the school.
Child's life isn't an emergency.
I can understand what you're saying.
Right. So we actually discussed this on a video.
Yes.
A lot of schools have started banning cell phones for young people, obviously, because they feel like it's too disruptive. A lot of teachers complain. So I read through this article, and I thought it was interesting because you and I, on one point, we kind of disagreed, which I think the point was you think this is going to make a big improvement. And I said, I don't think it's enough. I think it's a drop in the bucket. And we kind of had a little disagreement about it.
I think it's going to do somewhat of a change. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the whole solution, but I think it is going to be a change.
I read this article because I was looking for studies on this. This is the only study. They basically went through a bunch of schools. They kind of had students self-report how they felt. And basically off the study that they did, this is what the preliminary findings were. Okay, but it's a bit confusing. The first study in the world to look at school phone rules alongside measures of pupils' health and education feeds into fierce debate that has played out in the homes and the school in this years. Dr. Victoria Goodyear, the study lead author, told the BBC the findings were not against smartphone ban in schools, but what we're suggesting is that those bans in isolation are not enough to tackle the negative impacts that social media and cell phones can have on children. She said focus now needed to be on reducing how much time students spend on their phone, and we need to do more than just ban phone in schools. So they basically went through a bunch of schools, had people self-report. What they found was there wasn't a marked improvement in people's grades, and there wasn't a marked improvement in people's own mental health. So when I read this, I was like, okay, but that doesn't mean that they're not focusing more in class. And this doesn't mean that it's not going to have a long-term positive impact, right? Because it's possible that these school bans on cell phones over 4 or 5 years and that reduced time that people are spending on their phone might change people's lives.
It might.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. What do you guys think about the whole idea of banning in schools? Do you think that's enough? So basically, when you come into school grounds, there's different policies. Some people just say you can't have it in class, but you can have it in between classes. Some say once you arrive, you have to like put it in these bags and then they zip it away and you can't have it till the end of class. And some people don't have any bans at all. So where do you guys stand on this issue? Should they ban these things in school? Yes. Why? If not, why not?
Yeah, you don't even bring it to school.
Okay.
Don't bring it to school. Not just for the focus, but also like, y'all filming in school, y'all filming everybody. You're just sending that, the amount of bullying and stuff like that. No videos, no nothing. We don't have to film anything. We don't have to spread anything else that you're spreading, like in terms of bullying, like filming someone, a classmate, or a beat down or anything like that. You just get to your phone after school. I think the equivalent of your phone in school is like if I was bringing a console at my school, and the consoles were banned. You couldn't bring your Game Boy. You couldn't bring none of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the same thing, but even worse. If they're willing to ban like spaghetti strings because it distracts people, get the phones off my face.
I know
that's an interesting take. I'm not sure where I stand.
You're sitting,
but I do think it depends. I myself need a break from my phone when I need to concentrate on work and I need to focus on something. If I'm on my phone, because I have ADHD, because I have anxiety, I will doom scroll for hours and not do what I have to do. So from personal experience, if I was a student, I think it would help me because it forces me to focus on what's going on and not feel the need to fidget. However, if we're talking about banning this in the States, where certain risks are super high.
Like what? What risks?
Like a school shooting.
Okay.
I don't know if I can say it on YouTube because that says some other stuff.
Yeah. You know where they blast the kids in school.
Some of these kids are trying to reach their parent. Like, I understand a lot of these different angles. I'm not sure where I stand. I do think while you're studying, while in your class, put your phone away, give it to the teacher. You don't have your phone. But I know my sister gave my niece a phone. I didn't have a phone until grade 8. And the 5 and the 1 didn't work. So I couldn't call nobody. They had to call me. And like, that's how I grew up. But I still got to be a kid.
Mm-hmm.
During recess and during lunch, I still got to be a kid and run around and play sports with my friends. And
to your point, a lot of teachers who said these bans came into place, they said that they didn't notice that people talked to each other more. They were more sociable and that kids did play a lot more. I think there was even a video from like a school where they actually talked to some of the children. Maybe I'll try to find it, but they talked to some of the kids and they report the differences that they felt. So what you're describing definitely.
Yeah, like reflected. I do think for those purposes, for like the health of development, no, kids should not have their phones. They should be able to exercise and play and do all those things. My sister had a situation where my niece is 10. She had her first like school dance and she was juggling with the fact of like, should I give my 10-year-old a phone? I would have never, we didn't get phones, but she was like, I'm in these times now. I'm a parent in 2025 and I have to reach my kid. And what if I can't reach my kid? And what if there's an emergency and people aren't reaching us fast enough? So I think it's a hard.
Most of us grew up without these phones and we went to school and we were just fine. You go to school, you get on the fucking bus, you go back, you get on the bus, you go home. Like that's generally most people. The idea that you need this for your safety, it's like, well, if you truly believe that, then how do most of us make it home safely growing up as all? You know what I'm saying?
It was not as dangerous.
Is it more dangerous?
No, it's not. I'm just saying that's their argument. I don't think it is more. It's just that because of phones and technology, you hear more about it. I would ban them.
It's like, think about all the self-deletion rates that we have, all these kids who are like in massive depression because they're constantly on their screens, they're constantly, engaging with social media. It's like you're trading a really bad poison because you're trying to avoid the other potential poison, which is like the dangers of a school being shot up, which again is just an American issue specifically for the most part. But it's like, and even if the school is being shot up and you can text, it's like, how does that even save you? Your parent is not going to run in like Rambo and be able to stop a shooting anyway. So it doesn't really help anyone. It just lets them know faster. I don't think thing that they're trying to avoid is really mitigated by the solution that they have.
Well, what if there's a shooting? What if there's a shooting? You're going to leave a last note to your parents? Like, what's the point of your phone?
I also wonder, kind of probes people to commit more crimes at school or do more of those like jumps and beat ups when they have their phone. Because I saw
so that's actually a thing. Some of the teachers reported that they saw a lot less in terms of like going after other children's and beating them up, and then even like cyberbullying. They saw that go down by a lot. Why? Because like imagine you're in class. Cindy over there's got her hair fucked up. You can just text, look at this dirty bitch, Cindy.
No.
And you just text her. And then you share it with other people in the class. So it's a lot of that happening.
And you're going to share the pictures instead of just living in the moment and it happen, whatever. No, you have the proof, you share it, you overshare it.
Yeah.
And then people from other schools see it and insult. And
the way things go viral these days is
just like, ban the goddams. Just ban the whole goddamn.
Yeah, and I know people thought I was kind of crazy because I said like forget school. I think I think it should be illegal for people under that age to be even like on this stuff or really engaging with social media in general. Because in my opinion, with how addictive these things are, with how they rot your brain, I just think, especially for kids in development, I just think it has too much of an impact.
I am mad at it.
It's like to me, I almost treat it like weed.
Yeah.
In that it's fine for adults, like generally speaking, the effects that it can have on children in development is so bad they've banned it for kids. I think that makes sense to me, right? I think we should be legalized. Great. Should kids have access? Absolutely not, because the science shows. And what the science also shows in regards to social media access in terms of screen time is that it has a really negative impact on how kids perform academically. It has a negative impact on their mental well-being, and it has a lot of negative impact even on their physical well-being because they're just hunched over like this. So we know this. I don't even know why it's so controversial to say they shouldn't have access to it, period. People say I'm crazy or I'm doing too much, but I'm like, is that crazy?
No,
is it really?
I don't think it is.
Like, even if you disagree, is what I'm saying crazy is what I'm asking.
No, because we got to experience what it was like without phones. So we're also coming from a place of like, I'm so grateful I didn't grow up with social media and that we had that time in our lives. Like, and social media screws me up right now. Like, I find myself getting depressed. Like, I'm not to not talk about the kids, but like, look at the adults. Like, I've had hours of scrolling time and my confidence goes down. I'm exhausted, but I can't sleep because I've been on the screen for too long, and I can't do what I have to do because I self-sabotage with my own anxiety and get into this freeze mode of scrolling, but the apps are built for that anyways.
Exactly. And you're an adult, you can't control yourself. Imagine for the young people.
Well, that's it. I'm like, I can't really give an opinion when I'm addicted to my phone. You can be like, don't give it to the kids. Like, take it away from me, man.
Hey, listen.
I agree with you. I think we all might.
To me, that's probably the strongest point. If adults can't handle it and you see it negatively impacts them, why would you think kids should?
Well, think about it. There's even apps being created now to lock your phone for a certain amount of hours for adults to get their tasks done. Like, there's always something new coming out to help change an addictive behavior that your phone created.
Yeah.
If you're ready to ban those phones for everybody under 16 or 18, whatever, what's the punishment? What's the if they are cut with it? So
like it would be for weed, I think part of it is looking at how they got access, who supplied them, and then afterwards also whether or not the parents were incredibly neglectful. The goal is not to put kids in jail or like, put a record on them. That's not what I'm looking for. But I think enforcement, confiscation, even making social media companies accountable for the fact that they make their algorithm incredibly addictive towards kids. I think that's also something that people should look at. We should make it so that if kids even want to have access to like a lot of these social media platforms, that if their parents are not present, if there's not some kind of authentication process, that they shouldn't get access. Sure. And I don't even think that's that abnormal. When I want to use YouTube, for example, like for little kids, they have a lot of those processes that you can put into place. Make it mandatory, right? If you're going to be a parent, you should not give your kid this fucking addictive technology just so you can be absent from being present in their life, right? Because you want to abdicate your responsibility. You put them in front of a phone. Yeah, they're going to pay attention to their phone, but it's going to fry their brain. And it's also going to create a lot of developmental issues. I've seen what kids look like when they get too much screen time. It literally creates some of the worst habits in a human being. When you talk to the parent, they just say like, oh, it's like being a parent's tough. It's like, I know. I'm not saying you can't give them any screen time, but you just let it have 5 because you're tired. That's not reasonable to me.
I will say I have one cousin who's a teacher and she's very restrictive on screen time with her kids. They're 4 and 6, probably one of the smartest, most articulate, quick-witted children you'll ever talk to. And I have another cousin who, and no judge to parents, like in their situations, what they have to do, because if a kid gets addicted, it really just takes a couple times. But they don't really have like a rule or don't have a rule. Like there's no boundaries is what I'll say. And their kids have a little bit more, like they're very sensitive. They're quicker to cry. They're quicker to not, they have a hard time adapting to change and stuff like that. So it's, as an aunt, it's hard to not see the difference in the two groups of children and be like, yeah, no, let them do whatever they want. I'm just a cool mom. But at the same time, it's like, There are science and facts.
That's why I don't have kids. I want to be on my phone whenever the fuck I want. It's like, f them kids, for real. Shit.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a different question. So, do you think you're addicted to your phone?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next question.
You know what?
I don't like that question.
I think it's an interesting question. So we kind of raise it to you guys, the audience watching. What would you guys do? Would you, having heard all the opinions, I will say, when I think back on that clip, just watching the kids play Uno in the lunchroom, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And I think one of the saddest things for me when I was growing up is as I got to the age of 18 to 20, I remember being in my mom's neighborhood and walking around, and I went by one of the parks and it was fucking empty. And it was the weirdest sight for me because my whole childhood was spent running to the park and running around the neighborhood. Yeah. And now when I go through my neighborhood, I know people have kids. The kids just don't exist.
Yeah.
Because nobody walks anywhere. Nobody goes to the park in huge numbers. And people are like, no, Abby, that's not true. If you think we are even at the levels where parks are used, actually, I think it's more normal for adults to be at the park than kids.
Yes.
Most of the time when I get asked, it's just adults when I go. And a few people bring their kid. When I was growing up, it was just children. And there was like a few adults on the peripheries and like 2 of them were pedophiles. So it's a different time in that regards. I think it's sad that I'll see jungle gyms and stuff like that. And I was just like, there's nobody there.
No, but what you're talking about happened to me last summer. It was like, it was super hot outside. And in those parks, I'm on my way, they have water fountains for kids, like water games for kids. There was nothing, no one. The park was empty. I was like, oh my God, that's where we at now, huh? All right, cool.